Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ice Time. We dive into some big ideas around the NHL. I'm Mike Fink, and I'm joined by Matthew Zator. I think Matthew, you were on during the second round. I forget now; it's all a blur. But one of the regulars, as I say, I shortened my bench in the playoffs. Matthew, covering the Vancouver Canucks NHL prospects, all the great stuff out there for the hockey writers. Matthew, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's been a bit of an interesting. It's been an interesting third round because one team we weren't expecting to almost be the Stanley Cup Final so far, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it's an odd conference final round because although maybe not because considering every year we get like we're like this is going to be each one's going to go the distance. We're going to have some great matchups and then one just becomes a little lopsided. Sometimes both do, but we're going to get into the lopsided one, but let's start with the one that's not lopsided so far. It is the one we're actually recording this Monday night right after game 3 between the Canadiens and the Hurricanes. Hurricanes take that one 3-2 in overtime, take a 2-1 series lead. And it's interesting. We could dive into the game. We could dive into how it was a back and forth battle, and it was how the refs swallowed the whistles at the end for better or worse. People will have their debate about that or have their gripes, and everyone will think that the refs were out to ruin the game for either your team, their team, or favor the Hurricanes, regardless of what it is, because the calls wash out. But I look at this series, and the question was: is rest gonna help the Hurricanes, give them a huge advantage, or is the rust gonna give the Canadiens a huge advantage, or are the Canadiens gonna be all tired and fatigued? All those questions was like, are we gonna get a lopsided series? I think the last two games have shown that we're not getting a lopsided series. We're getting a great series so far, back-to-back overtime games. I wonder if you feel the same way.
The score kind of flatters the Hurricane. Well, it flatters the Canadiens a bit because when you look at the shots, I think they finished the game with 12 shots in this game. Last game was under 20 shots again. Even game one where they, handily beat the Hurricanes, they were still outshot in that game. So and the chances and all that stuff is going most of the Hurricanes' way. And you've seen the blocked shots that the Canadiens have as well. This game, the Hurricanes, if no blocked shots, they would have had over 60 shots on goal, which close to 70 when you look at it completely. For the Canadiens to really, yes, it's 2-1. They're still in it, but they got to start being able to generate more in the Hurricane zone because, they scored a couple goals in this game. They scored a couple goals in the last game, scored 6 in the first one. The Hurricanes, really, when you look at the Hurricane system, we've talked about it many times. Rod Brind'Amour's system is probably one of the best in the league. They suppress shots. They suppress chances. They get shots. They have possession. That's their system. That's how they play. So, are we surprised that this is how it is? But the Canadiens are going to have to try to fight their way through it if they want to win this series, and they're capable of it. They did beat the Hurricanes all season up until these last two games. They were unbeaten. So they can maybe pull the themselves out of it. But just these last couple games, I'm starting to think it's like you can't keep doing this against a team that this is how they play. This is their system, and it's working again.
And I think this is not the first time in the playoffs we've seen the Canadiens play this game and play a dangerous game where they get ahead early and then it's like they just take their foot off the gas and really play it safe where they play almost possession based. They don't try to get those extra shots, don't try to turn over the puck. It's not the first time they've done this. You look at game 7 against the Lightning, what did they get, like 9 shots on net? It was 9 shots. I think the Sabres, when they played them, they got a minimum number of shots in game 7 there as well. This is what they do, and it's interesting because now it's going to come back and bite them against the Hurricanes, and you're seeing it in the last 2 games. It's interesting because you could almost talk yourself into any direction with the Canadiens. You could look at this as, okay, they've lost 2 games in overtime, but they've been in these games against a team that's otherwise dominated the opposition. It's otherwise controlled play, and they've been in these games, sometimes had the lead even. You could talk yourself into that. Or that was the overtime loss that like the previous 2 rounds that the Hurricanes have had an overtime win early in the series. That's the one that's the dagger in the series. And all this to say, are you glass half full or glass half empty on the Canadiens?
After this game, I was frustrated watching because of course, the last Canadian team in the playoffs, and you want them to keep going. It's frustrating seeing them not be able to generate a lot of shots, and it's tough when you're looking at how the Hurricanes play. They're on you all the time. Their forecheck, of course, is this is how they do it. They clog the neutral zone. They make it really tough to generate speed. And it's tough because that's how the Canadiens play. They use their speed, and if they're restricted, the Hurricanes do play with a lot of speed as well. That's how they kind of dictate the play, but they are very sound defensively. I believe they were the best team in the league with, suppressing shots in the regular season. So, their system, we've seen it many times. I'm kind of on the glass half empty right now because just looking at it, it's tough because unless they can start kind of playing the same ways they did during their season when they played against the Hurricanes, where they outscored them, and if they can start doing that, it's going to be a tough turnaround because, again, when you're looking at the rest versus, the Hurricanes, a lot more energy, and the Canadiens have played the max games that you can play so far. And, maybe it's going to start coming back on them. And there's so many guys that are playing so much. I think St. Louis is going to have to start stretching his bench a bit more, start playing his fourth line because Brind'Amour does. So all his guys play. So I think that's what St. Louis got to start doing.
And I think the other layer to this is that in Game 3, the 2 goals for the Canadiens came from the defensemen. Matheson scored and Lane Hudson scored. The forwards, the star players, and it's one of those things also that's why we're talking about stretching the bench now. You mentioned that with St. Louis. And when your star players, Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Uri Slafkovsky, Ivan Demidov, those players who got you here, who got you to the playoffs and were your star players all season, have disappeared in the playoffs, and they haven't showed up. In fairness, Nick Suzuki has actually been great in this series. This is a series, I think, where you watch him play, you're like, oh, right, that's why he's going to win the Selke Trophy. He's just, watching him closely, you realize he's around every single puck. He's just every time, no matter what, he's just around the puck on every single play, and it's incredible. But offensively, those players haven't been there all playoffs, and now they're not here. They haven't showed up again, and now your forward unit is struggling as well. When you have all these problems, it starts to show here, and you need those players to step up, or else it is going to be a short series where I know they've gotten Kirby Duck or Alex Newhook to step up and find a few goals, but you can't rely on that when you're beating a team that also has the depth, or the team that wins with depth. You can't beat the Hurricanes at their own game. And I guess I'll just follow up. That's like the one last thing, which is that, first of all, the Canadiens' recipe to get back into the series? Is that the blueprint for success? And the other part is just, do you think this series, it's funny because it's 2-1, but do you feel like the series is already, this is the Hurricane series, they're going to probably win this in 5, or do you see the series going the distance? I know what we're rooting for, considering what the other series looks like, but what do you think?
I think it is the key for the Canadiens is that their depth, or not their depth, because we've seen the depth step up. Alex Newhook, you mentioned him; he's been amazing. You're looking at their points, and you say, some Canadiens fans are going to start saying, well, yeah, but Slafkovsky's got a bunch of goals. Caulfield's got some, but they're on the power play. And the thing is, the Hurricanes are the best penalty killing team in the playoffs. They did allow a power play goal in this one to Hudson, but if you're going to start having to rely on your power play in this series, I'm sorry, you're not going to win, because the Hurricanes are really good at the penalty kill. They were really good on the penalty kill in the regular season too. So, I think the Stars do need to start scoring 5-on-5, but the problem is this has gone on now for 2 series where they weren't great 5-on-5. They got through the first round because of their power play. They got through the second round probably because of their power play contributions as well, and Alex Newhook. Of course, he also won this game 7 in the round 1 as well. So, I mean, it's if he can maybe get going in this series again too, but I think the Stars are going to be the guys that are going to need to kind of push forward because it's going to be tough. If you're not going to score on the power play, 5-on-5 this is where it's going to have to come from.
And it's not just that the Hurricanes are good at killing penalties, that they're not giving up those penalties. And I think that's the other layer. And it felt like that's what it felt like in overtime. It felt like they were hoping to get bailed out by a penalty.
Yeah.
And they weren't. And the refs, I mean, this is like the other layer to it, which is that in the playoffs, they're not calling stuff unless it's egregiously a penalty or it's a penalty that, like, okay, they're going to call that. If it's a 50-50 call, they're not going to call it. This is why, I mean, that's why you look at the Florida Panthers, why they were so successful is that they would take those 50-50 calls. And they would take all those calls because the refs are just going to be like, we're not calling those. We don't want the game to be decided. They say we don't want the game to be decided on a borderline call. And you looked at so many of the situations there where it was, can it be called? Yes, but you could tell the way the Canadians were playing was they were hoping to get bailed out, like get that penalty. That okay, then we could play on the power play and then take advantage of all the skill that we have. And that's how the Canadians were thinking. And that's just not going to work against a Hurricanes team that, first of all, they're great on the penalty kill. And second, they're just not giving you those easy penalties. So it's one of those situations where, I think they were going to bounce back in game 4, but it feels like they had after game 1, it looked like they had the series. It looked like they were the team who's going to win the series, and we're like, oh wow, they have the edge. But they've let 2 games get away that they should have had. They should have had 1. They let both get away, and now you're just looking at this as an uphill battle for them. And it's interesting because I think it's one of those things that they have to make those adjustments, and they have to adjust to a team that has not figured them out as much as what they do. The Canadians don't have an answer for, and that's what really is interesting about it. Well, let's shift gears to the Western Conference, but before that, let's pay some bills, or let's try to pay some bills. So, talk about how this podcast is sponsored by DraftKings. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NHL, has a new customer offer. When the ice gets coldest, the best players in the world show you exactly who they are. Playoff warriors turn it up round by round, and DraftKings turns it up with them from the first round all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. But bet player props, bet live from the opening faceoff to the final horn. Every moment matters. New DraftKings customers, bet just $5. You'll get 100 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN so you're ready for the moment. That's code THPN. Turn $5 into 100 in bonus bets instantly in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-78 and 9777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario, restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer. Copyrights 2026. NHL. All rights reserved. All right. Western Conference Final. It's funny. I'm like, we're in the middle of it, but we're not. The Golden Knights have a 3-0 series lead, and I'm looking at this series, and I want to put an asterisk on it, where it's all right. The Avalanche are injured, and Cale Makar was out for the first 2 games, and without Cale Makar, you really don't have a chance. As much as the Avalanche want to say, all right, they're a great team or they're a good team, it's like they don't have a chance. Cale Makar is that good. Before diving into the series, I almost want to say, does this confirm that Cale Makar, 1, should have been a Hart Trophy finalist, and 2, that we should give more defensemen Hart Trophy votes?
I agree. I think it's very, you're looking at how much of an impact he makes on the game and how much impact he's made on the Avalanche, not just in the regular season, but you look in his past in the playoffs of how he won the Conn Smythe. So he's been an MVP in this time of year. And the thing is, you lose him, and now he's back. But how healthy is he? He didn't make as much of an impact in the game that they lost. And of course, game 3 they lost, and he was in the lineup. So I mean, he is. I think he is definitely should have gotten Hart Trophy votes and be a big contender for the Hart Trophy. We talk about MVPs and take them off the team. What do they look like? The Avalanche don't look the same without him leading the blue line. Now Devon Taves is your top defenseman. He's a great defenseman, but he's also made better with Makar on his pairing as well. So he's a lesser of a defenseman when he's not with him. So I mean, yeah, I think he's definitely an MVP, and they missed him for the first 2 games, and they're missing him. They're probably missing him even at, I don't know what percentage he's at. He's probably like maybe 75, 80%. He's healthy enough to play, but he's probably not completely healthy.
When we do the nucleus draft, I do this every year where we draft like who's your number one, who's a player to build around. And I think you're seeing this where if you take your top line center out of your lineup, it hurts, but you probably take your 2C, move them up, you move everyone up 1, and then you move a winger into the center spot. It hurts, but it doesn't destroy the way your team looks. When you take that number 1 defenseman and have a number 1 defenseman out of the lineup, it shows. And it shows with not just this team, but the theme of the playoffs have been all these number 1 defensemen. To look at what Lane Hudson's been doing with Montreal, and you look at what Rasmus Dahlin did with the Buffalo Sabres. The theme of the playoffs have been that, but taking Cale Makar out has really affected them. And then in game 3, Nathan McKinnon's out. Yeah. And that the impact that had is where all of a sudden, when he went down, it's like they're not winning this game. I think it was 3-0 at one point. It was in game 3, and Nathan McKinnon I think went down when it was 3-2 or it was 3-1. But when he went down, it's like they're not winning this game. I mean, like you felt that hockey's a game of flow and a game of momentum. You felt that momentum. You felt that shift in the game. And with all this in mind, I want to put an asterisk on the saying like, okay, it's not fair, or it's just that we got a bad deal where the Avalanche should have given them a good series. It should have given the Golden Knights a good series. This could have been a great series. But at the same time, at what point do we admit that the Golden Knights are actually a good team?
I think you got to give them a bit more credit now with what they've done. Not this. I mean, in previews we've talked about this series, saying, well, they beat 2 young teams, 2 teams that were like not very experienced, and you're looking now. You're going against a juggernaut that won the President's Trophy, and walked through the first 2 rounds with relative ease, and now you're looking at now they're beating the Avalanche. Well, what is this? Yeah, Avalanche have been hurt, like you mentioned, and there's a lot of guys that the top guys aren't playing at 100%. And they probably have an easier time, against them. But you got to give them credit. You got to give credit where it's due, because the guys that should be stepping up are Mitch Marner has been amazing throughout the playoffs here. Guys like Howden. I mean, where did this guy come from? He's got 10 goals, and I think he had probably like 12 in the regular season. So I mean, it's a thing, and when you're looking at Stanley Cup winners, guys, teams that go far, it's the depth that step up, it's the stars that step up, and that's what's going for the Golden Knights. And they're getting pretty good goaltending as well. You got to give them credit.
It's a lot like the 2023 team, which is that at some point people realized, wait, this is actually a good team. I think it's a little bit of, we didn't know how good the Golden Knights were because they played out west, and they're not an eventful type of team where is any player on the team going to be a finalist in any award? Maybe Mitch Marner for Selke. But other than that, think about it. Is Jack Eichel getting Hart Trophy votes? He might finish like 6th or somewhere in that range, maybe, but they don't have that type of player. They don't have an offense that blows people away where it's like, oh yeah, they just outslug teams, where the Avalanche had that type of offense. So there's teams like the Sabres, the Canadians, where you can pinpoint, oh yeah, they're exciting teams because they run up the scoring teams. And then there's teams with suffocating defenses they don't have any of that, but they're just a good team across the board. I also think it's like 2023, they're almost the lesson of this is why it pays to just get in to the playoffs, and why it pays. People talk about, oh, winning the division, does it matter? Does it not? This is why it pays to win the division, where they faced Utah. Utah was a young, unproven team. They faced the Ducks, who are also a young team, but you want to build your route. You want to build your road you want to make yourself an easy road to the final. And the Avalanche to a point also did that, where the Kings in 4, they got the Kings in 4, and they were able to play not an exhausted Wild team, as a Wild team that battled the Stars. You want to build yourself this road, and there's a chance with the Golden Knights that they face a Hurricanes team that goes 7 games, or a Canadiens team that goes 7 games. It actually would be funny if they faced the Canadiens who go 7, just because then it would be the Canadiens I think the Canadiens would hold the record for the most minutes played of any team to make the final, but I digress. But it just feels like this is why you do that. This is why you build yourself this road, it feels like.
No, it's true. And when you're looking at like you say, winning the division is always good. You get home ice for a lot of the time, unless of course you're facing the President's Trophy winners. So I mean, I think where you're looking at it, it is a big thing when you're looking at the path to the playoffs or path to the Stanley Cup Final. It does pay to get a bit easier, and they are getting lucky when you're, the Avalanche are getting hurt at the worst time. And the worst players to get hurt, the 2 of your top players, that your top defenseman and your top forward, both not just okay guys. These are like franchise, future Hall of Famers. And those 2 guys being not out of the lineup, but probably definitely going to be playing hurt. I don't know if McKinnon's going to be in game 4. I'm sure if he's okay, if he's not on crutches, I'm sure he's going to be playing.
I heard last I heard is that he's going to play. This is based on what Jared Bednar's been saying in practice, which is that we'll take McKinnon over nothing, which basically means like, even if he just plays the power play, even if he just plays what if he looks like 40-year-old Alex Ovechkin, which I guess, like, in fairness, like, if we want to know what Nathan McKinnon's going to look like at age 40, like, this is kind of a preview, or they're just going to throw him out in the power play. He's going to be trying to chase like point records and stuff, but like he'll lose his skating at some point in his career, and it's like, this is what. But even if he plays, there's no way he's playing at 100%. This is like an 80% McKinnon. Similar.
Which, I mean, I would take an 80% McKinnon over a lot of players. As he's still, like you say, skating might be not as but an 80% McKinnon at his speed is like, I don't know, still probably better than most skaters, right? So it's I think you do take him in the lineup. It's just how many minutes is he gonna play? How effective will he be? You're going to have to, I mean, the Avalanche are going to have guys step up. I mean, Brock Nelson, I haven't really seen him do much. This is a guy that needs to step up. He's a second line center. Nazem Kadri. I mean, there's guys that can step up to he's never going to replace McKinnon. You're never going to replace what he does, but you can get guys that can maybe do something, because they got Artturi Lehkonen. You got all these other guys that can do it. Gabe Landeskog has been amazing. A guy that he's still only a couple years removed from potentially never playing again. So he's stepping up. So, I mean, there's going to need more guys to do what their captain is doing, really.
And what all those players you're mentioning, it's crazy, because that's the story of the Avalanche was they're not just a top heavy team. They have all this depth. They have Natchez, they have Brock Nelson, they have all these players. You could just go on and on. They even have players like Sam Malinsky and Brent Burns on the defense, who have contributed all season, and then all of a sudden it's where's the depth gone?
Yeah.
And conversely, it's the other way around. You look at the Golden Knights, and it's and the Golden Knights, what's fascinating about them, and this is, I guess we'll wrap up with this, but wrap up on the Golden Knights and this series, is that they have all these players that can beat you. And it's a lot of these overlooked players, whether it's Dorofeev or whether it's Noah Hannafin, who's playing well, or Rasmus Anderson. That pair has been playing very well. Who's that overlooked player on the Golden Knights? Who's that one overlooked player that you've really dialed in on and said, wow, they're really having a good playoff run?
I mentioned him earlier, and that's Brett Howden. I mean, he's a guy that's he doesn't score a ton in the regular season. He's got 10 goals in the playoffs now. And, he's a bottom six guy. I mean, this is a guy mostly plays in the bottom six, and he's scoring. He's in, I don't know if he's leading I believe I think Dorofeev is leading in goals. Yeah. But so I mean, I think these two, I mean, Dorofiev's a top line scorer. He's a 30 goal scorer. But I mean, Tomas Hertl, I think he's kind of bit overlooked. I mean, he's a star player too. I mean, he's scored quite a bit, but he hasn't really been that prominent in the playoffs so far, but he scored in the last game. And Mark Stone just came back. I think he's a very underrated back in the lineup type guy where we know what he can do in the playoffs. He's the captain. He does it. And I think getting him back, and you talk about injuries, the Avalanche are losing guys. You get Golden Knights are going to gain. They gain. He might not be 100% either, but he contributed in game 3. So they have some other guys too. I think when you're looking at their depth, and they're doing it better than the Avalanche right now in their depth.
No, yeah, and it's also when you talk about getting Mark Stone back, and it just moves everyone down in the lineup, or it moves everyone. It gives you more depth. Where Tomas Hertl centering a third line, which even if he's not scoring, just to have him at your third line center spot, that just goes a long way, and it's showing with them where you have all these players around at the right time, and it really pays off. And they've built this way for a while. I mean, you look at their 2023 team, it was a lot of these players that anyone could have had, anyone could have signed, and then they were the ones that signed them, whether it was getting them off waivers or making a depth trade to get them in. And that's what they have now, and it's paying off at the right time. And it's interesting because I want to talk myself. I want to talk more about the Avalanche, but it's just it just feels like an uphill battle to the point where I'm like, why, almost why bother? Where the ability to the last President's Trophy winner was 2013. It was the shortened season, so I don't even count that. The last President's Trophy winner in a full season, a full 82 game season, was the Detroit Red Wings in 2008. But that's not even it. It's the fact that the last time we had a reverse sweep was 2014. Last time, there's only been 4 of those. So they're down 3-0. History's not on their side. They could prove us wrong, and then we'll be recording a fun episode in a week from now. But I doubt it. I mean, it just feels you feel like bummed for them, because you're like, this was going to be their year, and it's not, and it just comes to a screeching halt almost. Like all of a sudden you're like, that's it. That's like if this would have been a 7-game series and they had McKinnon, they had Cale Makar, and they just lost to a good Golden Knights team, which this team is, we'd feel better about the Avalanche. But it's the fact that it just comes to a screeching halt now. It just, you just feel bad. You feel for them. You really do. Shifting gears, I want to get a housekeeping question out of the way, which is that just in general, because we're looking at around the NHL right now, we're looking at that the coaching cycle is kind of heated up now, where you look at some of the names you look at some of the teams that all of a sudden it was, I think the Maple Leafs fired Berube, then it was the Oilers fire Knobloch, and now all of a sudden a bunch of teams are opening up spots where now these spots are open. And I feel one question I would have is how would you feel like if you're the Maple Leafs, if you're the Canucks, and presumably the Canucks are going to hire him, how do you feel about Manny Malhotra getting that head coaching spot?
Well, I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point. I'm not sure why they haven't even announced it yet, because I haven't heard anyone else being talked about. But I like it because the fact that they're kind of shifting into this, rebuild. He's been in the organization a couple of years now. He's gone through with the young guys that are in the system. Some of the guys that won a Calder Cup with him, they're in the NHL now. Atu Ratu, I think is going to really benefit. He's playing ridiculous in the World Championships right now. And he's going to really benefit with Malhotra as a coach. I think Malhotra's the guy. I really like it because, yes, he's a rookie coach. He's never been a head coach in the NHL before, but he's been in the league as an assistant. He's been a head coach in the AHL. We've talked about AHL coaches graduating to the NHL, I believe, on a previous episode before.
Well, I think I'm a bit biased here covering the AHL.
Yeah.
That I think AHL coaches are best set up to be great NHL head coaches. Honestly, I think maybe even on a previous podcast, I said I was surprised that Malhotra wasn't the coach last year. Like I thought they should have done this move like a year ago, but and they probably actually had that conversation. They probably said we actually should promote him, but wait until the Calder Cup Final's over. But yeah, like I digress on that, but I feel like I cut you off there, but go ahead.
No, I really agree. I think that he's ready for an NHL coaching job, and I don't want him to be somewhere else, because I think if he doesn't go to Vancouver here, he's not in the AHL next season. He's going somewhere, and I think beyond the Canucks, he's going to Toronto. So I mean, I really think that the Canucks have got it, because just the fact that he's been here. He's worked through, the system already. He's been, and the fact that Ryan Johnson was his GM last season, and the Sedins have worked with him in the AHL. I wouldn't understand why they wouldn't hire him, because I would love to know the explanation of why they didn't if they didn't. So.
It's one of those that if they don't, someone will. And that's really obvious now, where it's not just that the Maple Leafs, there's the Kings, there's all these teams that are in there. The irony, of course, is that when it came to the GM search, everyone knew Ryan Johnston was going to be the guy, and they've managed to interview like 30 GMs. Like anyone who had like some association with management of any sort was interviewed, where it's like, I managed a fantasy football team or a fantasy hockey team 10 years ago. All right, we'll interview you. It felt like they were interviewing everyone. And then finally, they bring in Ryan Johnston, and they were like, oh yeah, we got the guy we're looking for all along. Like Ryan Johnston was right there. It was like, and then the irony is that, now that they've made the coaching change, it's like Malhotra's the guy. We're not really interviewing many other people. It's just like, it's going to be Malhotra, and it's a little it's quite obvious there. And I mean, my opinion is, he should have been the coach a year ago. Like, if you were to redo things, I think it's because the Canucks thought they were going to contend, or thought they were going to make a playoff push and didn't want to rebuild. They didn't want to bring in Malhotra right away, but he's the type of coach. He was an assistant at the NHL level with Toronto, which is, again, that's high. That's why they would want to bring him in, but he was an assistant there. He led the Abbotsford Canucks to the Calder Cup title, which doesn't get stated enough that's how hard that is to do. Especially it's hard to do when the Canucks didn't have a great farm system, or their farm system is like in the middle, where that to get those players, get those Ratus, those Leckermackis, those type of players, Jonathan Leckermacky, those players to overachieve, and that's what he did. So he's a great. He's the name that I think the Canucks should hire. It is interesting, though, on a bigger picture level with the coaching search, it feels like we're moving away from retreads. I know, as I say this, Bruce Cassidy's presumably going to be the Oilers' next head coach whenever that happens, whenever the Golden Knights clear that up. But aside from that, it looks like the Maple Leafs want to go with a fresh face. It looks like the Canucks are going with a fresh face with Malhotra. Do you see this as maybe not the new trends, but do you see this becoming a trend, or teams are starting to look towards, okay, what new ideas can we bring into behind our bench?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's been so many years where guys get fired and they're brought back into another team, and then they're fired again within a couple seasons. It's like, is this really working? I know these guys keep going to different places, and within a couple seasons they're gone again. I mean, even with the Golden Knights, I mean, we talk about Tortorella's brought in, they might win the cup, who knows? But I still see Tortorella being short term. I think he's gone within a couple seasons because he seems like his shelf life is very short because players start getting really annoyed with him or something. So I mean, I think the retreads are starting to kind of go away. Although, like you said, in the same breath, Bruce Cassidy's probably the Oilers' next head coach. I'm sure Craig Berube is going to land somewhere. And there's other guys out there like Peter Laviolette. I've heard his name being thrown around for these coaching vacancies. So I mean, some of these guys will get jobs again, but I do see this, trend of getting these AHL coaches, these guys from NCAA. I know David Carl has been kind of in that conversation too, but it doesn't sound like he wants to leave the NCAA. He's been
it's like an annual,
he wants a lot of money to go, so I don't know.
It's like an annual tradition with David Carl, which is he wins a national championship. People are wondering, well, what opportunity will he take? And then it's the same story where I think Denver gives him another bump in pay, and then he stays there. And you do wonder, like, what? Because he is, I think, what's crazy about David Carl is he's only 36 years old. Like, I thought he was older, just considering how many titles he's won in Denver. But no, he's only 36. So he's got time to wait for his chance and then just find that perfect opportunity. People are wondering whether it's Denver or whatever it is. But whether basically if the Colorado Avalanche, if they move on from Bednar, maybe that Carl is that next successor where he doesn't have to move and he could just ease right in. But I digress there. I think it is interesting because that you look at what Dan Hughes did with the Penguins, and he was a young, fresh face that people that they brought in and tested it out, and look at how that worked out. And you look at some of these other, you look at what the Oilers did with Knobloch, how that worked. He's from that AHL background, and some of the names in the AHL right now, which I know pretty well, like Steve Ott is the big name that I would keep in mind because look at what he did in Springfield, or even Ryan Muginel with Providence, or Trent Vogelhuber is actually going to join Columbus. It looks like he's going to be there. He's going to join. And I think a lot of teams are also doing that now, which is getting rid of those long-time assistants who've been on their benches for a while because they want to keep these AHL head coaches who are these up-and-coming names and want to bring them onto their bench. And you want to have that coach who works with the young players around in your system. So it is interesting to see that, and it hopeful. I mean, I would like to see these new ideas. I'd like to see like these new names behind the bench instead of the same retreads. But I mean, you mentioned Laviolette. I was like, I heard Mike Babcock's name thrown out there, and I was like, are we really going back there? Are we going to go back to Daryl Sutter too? I was like, Daryl Sutter though, that was more of a fun ride for us. We don't really get those coaches anymore. No, but yeah, it is interesting. All right. That's all we got, Matthew. Really appreciate you joining for Ice Time After Dark, because it's past midnight here on the East, here in Eastern time. Thank you for joining. And while you're at it, anything you're working on, any plugs, anything big in the works, let us know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the draft is getting closer by the day. We're close to a month away actually now. So I mean, yeah, lots of draft coverage over the Hockey Writers. I've been doing draft targets for the Canucks. They've got 2 first-round picks, so 1 third overall, like we said a few times on different shows, different everywhere. See what they do there. I mean, there's lots of names around. I mean, yeah, lots of stuff for draft-related stuff. I'm kind of focusing on that right now. And then, of course, Emmanuel Holtra does get hired. I will for that. It seems like a foregone conclusion that'll happen, so look out for that. But yeah, it's draft season over here.
And of course, the number 3 pick, we talked about Manny Malhotra. And number 3 pick, I don't know who they're taking, but does their last name is their last name Malhotra by any chance? There's a lot of talk about that, whether that's good for them or not. But yeah, let's draft's a month away. Yeah, because I think it's the 26th of June, and it's May 26th here. Maybe May 25th there. But anyway, it's it's the draft season is ramping up. So yeah, exciting stuff. A lot going on in Vancouver, a lot going on in the hockey world now. It's really everything just coming to a head at this time of year, which is exciting. But for now, that's all we got, Matthew. Really appreciate you joining, taking some time out of your busy schedule because it is busy. Check out all his great work at the Hockey Writers. You can check out my work at the Hockey News, and make sure to check out all the great podcasts here at the Hockey Podcast Network. Great stuff there. We hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, which you can do to Mike Fink Hockey Writer. Check that out in the YouTube channel. And we tune in next time for another great episode. Thank you.